Okay, so the next thing is genre elements, and what I mean by this is whatever genre we're working in, there will be specific tropes or production techniques we will see very commonly used. And for hip hop, this may be that 16 level delayed brass stab sound. And for this track I've made for this tutorial, I've based it on 90s style atmospheric jungle. And so what I've got here is a whole list of really common things we will see in this type of jungle. And for this track I basically started with this 16 bar loop, and then I just added elements one by one from this list to build out this track, and I'm going to take you through all of that now. Okay, so the first element I've got here is a very classic amen break. And then the next thing is some nice ethereal jungle pads. I've then gone and done that technique where you drag a single snare to a new sampler instrument so you can pitch it up and down, and then I've used that just at the fill section of this amen break passage here. I also took that same snare and I chucked it into my Akai S1000 here and did that old school time stretching thing to it there, so I've got these wicked stretch snares as well. I've got some Diva Vox samples here which I've chopped up just to time them a little bit better, and I'm also sending them off to a big delay to help them ring out nicely. And then I've got another little sexy Vox down here somewhere. And then I've got one more, I've got some rap vocals as well in here. Just in this section I've got this little...
Let's move on, cause it's time to move on. Hear the drummer get wicked.
I think the next thing is I've got this 808 bass, which is just classic 90s jungle. It's basically just a sine with a little bit of saturation and distortion as your bass line. The next thing I've done is some break layering. Now, break layering is a really good way to add energy to certain sections. And so you can see here at the start, I've got the amen just as it is. And then what I've gone and done is layered it up in this section. So I'll show you a bit of like before and after. Just soloing these two things might make it really clear. And then another thing I'm doing is actually some break swapping in this part, where you go from one break in one section, and when you want to change the energy and give the sense that you're moving in a new direction, you actually just swap to a completely different break in the next section. Another technique, which is my absolute favourite thing to do at the moment, is these little RP synthy kind of delayed sounds. And I've done this with the Rhodes here, but the key to this is to do a half note delay. And then you just have this lovely little ringing out kind of section here. Which just sounds epic. I've chosen some good notes there, which I'm really liking. But you could just listen to that all day. It's such a good trick, that half note delay. And the key is you actually build this MIDI region in a half note, and then you get this like perfectly repeating delay passage. And you can also do little things like this where you just go kind of up in the scale, all the notes, and you get another cool effect. And you can pitch that up an octave. So lots of classic atmospheric jungle uses this technique, but I'm obsessed with it at the moment, so it's going in all my tracks. So that's a bit of a hidden gem in there. And then the next one I've got is actually just adding percussion layers. So I didn't go too crazy with this, but in this kind of drop down section here, I just wanted something to fill in where the drums had gone, and I just use this bongo with a bit of delay on it. So it's just a really simple bongo sound. And then the final sound I have here is this string sound, and I'm using this string in two ways. I've got this kind of stabby sound I'll play you in a second where I go into a more energetic stabby section, but I need that section to build in energy. So it's basically its raw form here, and then I'm adding a few more layers in this area, and one of those layers is the string. But then what's also happening is I'm transitioning back to my more sustain pad in this section, and having the string there helps to just merge everything together a little bit. And so even though there's a big change with lots of the kind of the breaks are changing and all the pads are changing in this section, I've got this string section continuing over the gap. And so you can use certain elements like that to sort of camouflage these big transitions and just to help everything sound a bit more cohesive. You can also think about this more broadly in terms of any elements from any genre or any technique. Once you know how to do something, make a big list of it, and then you can recall that information later on. I think this is one of the things now with YouTube. There's so many people showing you different techniques and you learn all this stuff, but it's so easy to forget. And so having a big list of all of these things you've learned how to do, and you can call upon when you need a bit of inspiration. And so I've got this huge list here of all of these things I kind of figured out how to do, from enhancing my drums to different things I can do with my instruments or different instruments to add, types of automation and modulation I like doing, special effects, ambience and textures, transitions, ear candy, arrangement tips, workflow tips. There's just so much in here that if I'm struggling with something and I don't know where to go with the track, I can just jump into this list for a bit of inspiration. And this comes to my next point, where once you get a little bit better at this and you start building your own techniques, you start to develop a little bit of your own arrangement style, which is kind of your identity as a producer. As much as the production techniques you use, it's the arrangement techniques you use. And I do a few things in my tracks pretty much every time, just because I like the sound of them and I think they're cool. And one of them is a very simple, it's just doing a crash sample and putting a dotted quarter note delay on a crash. Sounds dope, always does. Another thing I love to do is actually these little reverse snares, and this is a little bit of like a re-noise thing for me, but you do like a forwards backwards snare at the end of a bar and it gives you this little whipping sound, which sounds a little bit weird in isolation, but when you play it in a track it gives you a cool little whip back into the next bar. And I've just used it once again as a little fill section in this bit here. Another trick I love to do is a bit more of an advanced one, but what it is I modulate the loop endpoint with some automation in Logic here. I'm kind of modulating control 3, which I'm sending loop end to, and I'm also doing some modulation on panning. But you get these cool kind of ratchet effects. If I just play this example, you can see the loop endpoint starts to move out as it's looping around. And then I've done another one of these with a little bit of a different sample. This is actually like a chop from a record, and it gives me this really cool sparkly watery effect. So you get so many interesting things you can get out of doing this technique, but if I just play this in the context of my track, it's those little bit of sparkly ear candy stuff you need just to bring things to life and to make them interesting for the ear. And then finally, I really like doing these pitch drop bass sounds just to give me a bit of variation from my kind of repeating bass passage. So I've just done here, I've gone from my standard 808 and then I've got now a 909 with a bit of an envelope to pitch, just giving that pitch drop.